Hi Saviors, GH here. Today we're gonna check one of the best builds in the Scout Class 3. It's Assassin, Linker, and Rangda. We're gonna show each classes, what they do, their skills, and tell you guys the reason why each of these classes are here in this build. With that said, let's do this! Okay guys, here's the build. There's Assassin, Linker, and Rangda. Let's start with Assassin. Now Assassins are dagger wielding classes, usually taken because of its utility skills and because of how versatile the class is. You can put it in any build and it will have a use for sure. Let's take a look at the skills. First off is Hasisas. It's a critical damage buff with a 30-minute. And there's a Ski Eclipse knife for this that further increases its critical damage increase. Get it! Next skill is Annihilation. It's a massive area attack that also makes you immune to damage while the skill is active. High skill factor but a very long cooldown, so make sure to use it when it counts. Third skill is Instant Acceleration. It's your mobility skill. You can use this to get away from danger. It deals damage but not really that good. Fourth skill is Behead. It's an attack that makes enemies bleed, and on PvP, you can use this to teleport behind the enemy. Next ability is connected to Behead. It's called Hallucination Smoke. It's a debuff that lowers enemy crit resist and evasion. And there's an art for this that gives it the ability to inflict assassination target debuff for 20 seconds. And what it does is make the inflicted enemies a priority of Behead teleportation. And as an additional effect, it makes enemies take 25% more damage from dagger attacks. Last skill is Piercing Heart. It's a pierce type attack that ignores 15% of enemy defense and also stops them from recovering. And as a special effect, it also accelerates bleeding. Remember this because it can work with the Rangda skill. And that's Assassin. Right now, it's still a very good class to pick. And its value got even more higher because of the previous changes. But not everything is nice. Just a reminder, this video is for September 2020. And in the future, IMC plans to make some changes to Assassin. So ask in the comments for updates. And now let's head on to Rangda. Now Rangda is a weird ass witch doctor type of class that utilizes abilities that is somehow strike type attacks. Yeah, I know, it's weird. And I'm emphasizing that all Rangda attacks are strike type because there's a Wastrel sword that activates a ×2 crit rate that can be triggered by 5% when attacking with a strike type attack. Yes, 2 times. When you have 4k crit rate, it will be 8k. No stupid calculation. Just make sure crit 2 times the amount. Okay, now this class is here because it works with Assassin in a lot of ways, but more specifically, the Luca Piercing Heart combo, which we will show after I explain what Luca is. Now, Luca is a skill, a strike type attack that gives bleeding damage over time, and Piercing Heart can accelerate bleeding. Look at this. This is how Luca normally deals damage. It's per half a second. And if I use Piercing Heart on a target inflicted by Luca, the bleeding accelerates. And as I use Piercing Heart even more, the bleeding damage inflicts damage even faster. That skill combo is your main bread and butter for taking down bosses because both skills has fast cooldown and works well together. Next skill is Kelitihan. It's an area debuff that reduces enemy crit resist, evasion, and accuracy. And you can use it 2 times and it can be stacked up even more by using the next skill called Rawa. Now, Rawa is an area attack that deals damage continuously as long as the enemy is stepping on the area of effect. And it also inflicts Rawa debuff that further increases your damage, and there's an attribute for this that further increases the number of Kelitihan debuff the longer the enemy steps on Rawa. So use it together to maximize the effect. Next skill is Kutukan. It's a debuff that inflicts damage over time and also turns enemies in PvE into a Keppa. But in PvP, Turning enemies into a Keppa depends on the amount of Kilitian stack that they have. That means there's a chance that enemies will not be turned into a Keppa. And lastly, Peñarapan. It's a buff that increases your additional damage. This skill is mostly for basic attacks, so it isn't useful in this build. But there's an art for Peñarapan that gives it the ability to heal the caster depending on the number of debuffs the enemy has. And that's Rangda, a pretty good class, specifically when paired with the right classes. Never really liked this class, but you can't deny how good it is in boss fighting when it's paired with Assassin. Alone, Rangda, I would never take it. That's why the planned removal of the synergy between Assassin and Rangda may not go well. Anyway, let's head on to the last class, Linker. Now, Linker is a class that specializes on links that could either make the party strong or make the enemy receive more damage. And the reason this class is here is because it can further increase the synergy between Assassin and Rangda by introducing more damage increase, another way to deal damage over time, and buffs that increases the stats of the whole party. Let's take a look at the skills. First off is Joint Penalty. It's a skill that can link up multiple enemies, and as a result, they share damage taken. A pretty good skill for mobbing with a very low cooldown. And there's an art for this that turns Joint Penalty into a single target skill that increases damage taken by enemies as long as they are chained to the caster. And there's a chance for you to recover HP while attacking the enemy. It's a pretty good self-sustainability. That's for sure will be a vital part of your attack pattern. Next skill is Electric Shock. It's another strike type attack which is also electric type that deals damage over time as long as you are connected to the enemy. Next skill is Hangman's Knot. You can use this to gather enemies into one spot when they are linked by Joint Penalty. Last skill is Lifeline. It's a party buff that adds more stats, about 100 to 300 plus depending on the caster. This is a pretty good buff because it adds, for example, 300 to all of your stats. And that's Linker. For sure, it's pretty good, but I consider Linker here to be the class that can be replaced. Try Corsair, Outlaw, or Shinobi instead of Linker and see how you like it. All of them are good, it's just a matter of preference. And that's the build. Now let's do the good and the bad. Let's start with the bad. Let's take a look at the endgame content. In terms of challenge mode, this build is insufficient for mobbing, and you will constantly have problems dealing with enemies because of the lack of significant area attacks. For uphill, it's the same. Mobbing is very reliant on Joint Penalty, Rawa, and Annihilation. And after that, you will find yourself being ignored by mobs rushing in the center. So yeah, I accentuated the mobbing problem, which is not really that bad, but is a problem nonetheless. And now for the good stuff. For challenge mode and raids, it offers a way to quickly deal with boss fights with the use of its skill combination. It's pretty awesome, you gotta try it out at least once. The build also offers mobility, which is quite rare in the Scout Class 3, and the good old iframe. You have it here thanks to Annihilation. All in all, if you're looking for a dagger build, this could be it. But just saying, you can also use a pistol in this build as shown in the whole video. Now, is this build viable? Heck yeah, I believe this is one of the best single target build in the Scout Class 3. So if you're aiming for this build, rest assured this build is certified by Gaming Hardcore for boss fighting. And that's it guys. Are you rigging this build? Share to us your experience on the build. And like it if you like the video. Share. And then subscribe to be part of the Gaming Hardcore family. And as always, this is Gaming Hardcore. See you in the next one.